Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Thing podcast. This is another solo episode, and I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic. So let me ask you something. Try to think of the last movie that was released from Disney, or the last movie that you've watched. Did you think of The Little Mermaid live action adaptation released in 2023? Or the Lilo and Stitch live-action adaptation released in 2025? Or even did you think about the newly announced Tangled live-action? Probably, because this is no coincidence. The topic that I will be discussing today is why live-action remakes and reboots are quietly killing creativity, hurting the animation industry, and flattening cinema as a whole. Now, this isn't to say that new movies are bad and that remakes and live actions are bad, because some of them actually do have good elements of them and work out well. But it becomes an issue when all newly announced movies from Disney, Pixar, are just remakes and have no original ideas. The first point is that live action remakes are just safe. For example, with Disney, why make a brand new animated movie when you can remake Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, Aladdin, or Little Mermaid and guarantee nostalgia-driven box office numbers? These movies aren't being made because the story needs to be retold. They're being made because audiences already know the story. And there is comfort in that because these movies are guaranteed to be a huge box office success. These movies are safe. You already know how they're going to end. You know what songs are coming. You know what character is going to die, make you cry, make you laugh. And studios love this because familiarity equals money. But here's the issue. Safe doesn't necessarily mean better. Most live-action remakes don't actually improve the story. They don't bring forth any new themes. They don't challenge the audience at all. They just recreate the animated version, usually with less expression, less imagination, and way less magic. Which brings us into the next point, is that with these live remakes, animation loses its magic. Now, when a live-action adaptation gets announced, a lot of people think, wow, this movie and this world of characters is going to come to life. And it's going to be more familiar because it's live action. But what about the art that was put into the actual world in the original movie? Animation is not a starter version of film. It's not something you just graduate from once you can afford real actors and CGI. Animation is its own art form. Animated films can exaggerate emotion, movement, color, scale. Animators can have characters do anything. Like if you see talking lions bursting into song, or you see a small chameleon and large horse having a dramatic feud during the whole movie. These things aren't shocking. They're also comforting. With animation, things don't feel awkward. A world can bend to emotion. Physics don't matter. Feeling does. Now, for example, remakes like The Lion King released in 2019. The animation and the CGI is technically impressive, but the emotions within it are flat. Because obviously, realistic lions can't just emote the way animated ones can. For instance, with the characters, Scar loses his theatrical menace, Simba loses his expression of grief, and even the songs just feel restrained and unnatural for the characters within it due to the magic of the animation and art that was taken away. And so when all of the new movies that are being announced and released from Disney, Pixar, and other studios are just live action adaptations of original movies, the message is kind of brutal. That animation isn't enough on its own. And this scary message hurts animators. It tells creators that the ultimate goal isn't to push animation forward and push that world of art forward, it's to replace it. And meanwhile, original animated films struggle to get funding, marketing, or even theatrical releases, while these remakes and live-action adaptations get billion-dollar campaigns. Now for the next point, let's zoom out to a more generic claim. Live-action remakes are part of a bigger issue, Hollywood's addiction to recycling. And it's not just Disney. We see it with superhero reboots, sequels, spin-offs, reimagined classics. It becomes to the fact that everything just has to be recognizable. Studios are terrified of original ideas failing, so they keep hitting refresh on stories that already worked. For example, Toy Story. Did you hear that there's a 5th movie coming out? People don't really care about this. However, when it's coming out in theaters, people will fall into that nostalgia trap and watch it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better in quality and improving. How about Descendants? The original characters and main villains and heroes in this franchise have left. So why are they adding more movies? While there is a counterclaim that there's no hurt in adding to this world of characters that was created in the first place, there is an issue when these new movies and sequels fall in quality and don't really add anything to the original world that was created. This is also seen in higher volume and ongoing franchises, such as Marvel, Star Wars, Avatar, Jurassic World, Mission Impossible. Now, while some of these movies are decent in quality, some aren't and are just wastes of production, money, and kind of fail to keep to the original works that were made in the first place. Now, from all of this, cinema starts to feel like an algorithm. What sold well before? What brand already exists? What can we remake with slightly different casting and updated visuals? And eventually, movies stop surprising us. They stop feeling personal, they stop feeling risky, and they just stop feeling like art and start feeling like content. Now, something that is quite often forgotten with these movies is that not every story has to or is meant to be realistic. Now, since these are live-action remakes and you have to use CGI to make these animals or other characters realistic, these studios will start to take the live-action movie and try to make it more serious and gear it away from the fun and whimsy that the original had. Because they just can't do this. They can't have an audience react as strongly to some live-action adaptation with CGI making these animals look realistic and singing and talking over the original animated work. For example, Mulan, Pinocchio, or Dumbo, these live actions were made to be more serious and realistic than exaggerated, whimsical in the original movies. Live action flattens out the whimsy and fun of these stories. It treats imagination like something to tone down instead of lean into. Now, again, like I mentioned before, the nostalgia trap. Take Toy Story again, for instance. A movie that was made in 1995, a whole generation grew up with that. And now that generation is bringing up a new generation for new movies to watch. And so, when Toy Story 5 comes out in a few years, whenever it does, these people are going to bring their kids to see this movie. Because nostalgia is powerful, and studios know it. They know that people will show up because they loved the original, and they know, like I said, that parents will bring kids. They know that TikTok edits, comparisons, and discourse will do half the marketing. But nostalgia is a finite resource. The more it's exploited, the less it works. Eventually, you're not honoring the original, you're diluting it. Instead of creating new classics, studios are living off old ones. And this realization raises a scary question. What are future generations going to feel nostalgic for if nothing new is allowed to breathe? Let's do something fun now. I'll describe a movie experience, and you tell me which version sounds better. Version A. Exaggerated expressions, bold colors, stylized movement, music that feels natural, characters that feel larger than life. Version B. Muted color grading, realistic physics, restrained performances, and CGI trying really hard to look real. Now, most of the time, version A wins, because animation was never the limitation, it was the strength. So again, when you take this whole world of animation where anything can happen and anything feels comforting and possible and try to make it realistic and turn it into reality, this falls flat. So, are remakes always bad? No. But the problem isn't one remake. It's the volume. It's the fact that studios keep choosing nostalgia over innovation. Live-action remakes aren't ruining cinema because they exist. They're ruining it because they replace opportunities for new voices, new stories, and new styles. For instance, these Disney original movies that are only, within 10 years ago, such as Encanto, Moana, Zootopia, and Inside Out, were a huge success because Disney trusted in these new original ideas and fought for them. New ideas and new original thoughts need to be fought for more. Cinema doesn't need to stop revisiting the past, but it desperately needs to stop living in it. Animation deserves respect as its own art form. Original stories deserve budgets, marketing, and faith, and audiences deserve movies that don't assume familiarity is enough. Because creativity isn't about remaking what worked, it's about daring to try what hasn't. And that's it for today's episode. Now, next time you're in the movie theaters watching the new Tangled adaptation or Moana live action, maybe ask yourself, is this expanding the story or just cashing in on it? Thanks for listening to The Real Thing. I'll see you next time.